Prepare yourselves for a tale that will shatter every assumption you've ever held about strength and silence. What happens when cruelty meets its perfect match in the most unexpected form? Today's story will take you on a breathtaking journey of a quiet soul whose gentle exterior concealed a devastating secret that would leave her tormentors questioning everything they thought they knew about power. This is the story of how one moment of unthinkable humiliation became the catalyst for the most spectacular reversal of fortune you'll ever witness. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn rain drummed against the windows of Pinecrest Academy as 17-year-old Maya Chen stepped through the imposing stone archway for the first time. Her small frame seemed almost swallowed by the oversized navy blazer that marked her. As a scholarship student, the crisp fabric still bearing the creases from its package. Maya's eyes, dark and observant behind wire-rimmed glasses, took in the sprawling campus with its manicured lawns and towering oak trees that had stood sentinel over generations of privileged students. This exclusive preparatory school in the heart of Connecticut was a far cry from the modest public school in San Francisco, where Maya had spent her previous years. Her father, Dr. James Chen, had recently accepted a position as head of emergency medicine at the nearby university hospital, and her mother, Dr. Lisa Chen, now worked as a psychiatric resident at the same facility. Both parents believed that Pinecrest's prestigious reputation would open doors for their daughter that their immigrant backgrounds had once closed for them. Maya clutched the leather messenger bag her grandmother had given her, its worn surface telling stories of late nights spent studying and sketching. Inside, along with her carefully organized textbooks, lay a collection of charcoal drawings that captured the raw emotion of faces she'd observed in quiet moments. Art had always been her refuge, a silent language that spoke louder than her soft-spoken words ever could. The hallways of Pinecrest hummed with the confidence that only generational wealth could cultivate. Students moved with practiced ease, their conversations peppered with references to summer homes in the Hamptons and winter breaks in Aspen. Maya felt the weight of their inherited certainty pressing against her shoulders as she navigated toward her first period calculus class. At the center of Pinecrest's social constellation stood Victoria Sterling, an 18-year-old senior whose auburn hair caught light like burnished copper and whose emerald eyes could freeze blood with a single glance. Victoria's family name adorned the library wing, and her great-grandfather's portrait hung in the main entrance hall alongside other distinguished benefactors. She ruled over her domain with the calculated precision of someone born to command, surrounded by an inner circle that moved in perfect synchronization with her every mood. Her closest allies included Harper Davidson, whose musical laugh could turn venomous in seconds, and Blake Morrison, a lacrosse captain whose charm masked a cruel streak that ran deeper than the Charles River. Together, they formed an impenetrable trinity that had never encountered a challenge they couldn't dismantle with surgical precision. Maya's arrival rippled through their carefully maintained ecosystem like a stone thrown into still water. She was an anomaly, a scholarship recipient who didn't seek their approval or cower under their scrutiny. During her first week, Maya simply existed in their peripheral vision, attending classes with quiet focus and eating lunch alone while sketching in her notebook. Her self-contained confidence puzzled them, and puzzlement always preceded their predatory instincts. What none of them could see beneath Maya's reserved exterior was the steel that had been forged in dojos across 3 continents. From the age of 5, Maya had studied martial arts under her grandfather, Master Chun Wei, a legend in underground fighting circuits who had immigrated to America, carrying nothing but ancient knowledge and unbreakable discipline. Every summer, Maya had traveled to train with masters in remote monasteries, learning not just physical techniques, but the mental fortitude that separated true warriors from mere fighters. Her grandfather had taught her that true strength revealed itself only when absolutely necessary, and that the greatest victories were often won without raising a fist. Maya had internalized these lessons so completely that even her parents remained unaware of the devastating power their quiet daughter possessed. They knew she practiced Tai Chi for stress relief and flexibility, but they had never witnessed the lightning-fast combinations she could execute or the bone-crushing force she could generate with movements that appeared as graceful as a dance. Maya's training encompassed 7 different martial arts disciplines, from the flowing movements of Wing Chun to the explosive power of Muay Thai. She could dislocate a shoulder with a gentle-looking touch or render someone unconscious with pressure, points that most people didn't know existed. Her grandfather had also taught her weapon forms, and Maya could wield everything from traditional swords to improvised weapons with deadly efficiency. But perhaps more importantly than her physical abilities was the mental training that allowed her to remain completely calm under pressure. Maya had learned to read body language like a text, to anticipate attacks before they began, and to project an aura of harmlessness that made opponents underestimate her until it was far too late. She moved through the world like water, adapting to every container while maintaining her essential nature. As October's golden leaves began to carpet the academy grounds, Maya settled into a routine that kept her largely invisible to the social dynamics swirling around her. She excelled academically, particularly in advanced physics and art history, where her unique perspectives caught the attention of professors who had grown weary of privileged students coasting on family connections. Her teachers began to recognize something exceptional in the quiet girl who asked penetrating questions and offered insights that revealed a sophisticated understanding of complex concepts. Maya found solace in the Academy's art studio, a converted chapel where tall windows cast ethereal light across canvases and easels. During free periods, she would lose herself in charcoal portraits that captured not just the physical features of her subjects, but the emotional truths they tried to hide behind carefully constructed facades. Her drawings revealed loneliness behind laughter, insecurity beneath arrogance, and pain masked by cruelty. Victoria's interest in Maya crystallized during a particularly mundane Tuesday morning when the scholarship student inadvertently committed the cardinal sin of excellence. During advanced European history, Professor Whitmore posed a complex question about the economic factors that contributed to the fall of the Byzantine Empire. The classroom fell silent as students shifted uncomfortably, their expensive education suddenly feeling insufficient against the weight of actual scholarship. Maya's hand rose slowly, and her voice carried across the room with quiet authority as she wove together threads of trade route disruptions, currency devaluation, and military expenditures into a comprehensive analysis that impressed even the notoriously demanding professor. The silence that followed was heavy with resentment from students who had never been intellectually challenged by someone they considered beneath their social station. Victoria's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, her emerald eyes tracking Maya's every movement as the quiet girl gathered her materials after class. This would not stand. The social order of Pinecrest had functioned perfectly for generations, and Victoria would not allow some outsider to disrupt the delicate balance that kept everyone in their proper place. The campaign began with surgical precision. Maya's locker combination mysteriously changed overnight, forcing her to seek help from maintenance, while Victoria's group watched with barely concealed amusement. Her art supplies disappeared from the studio, only to reappear days later damaged and scattered. Across the parking lot, anonymous notes began appearing in her textbooks, initially containing mild criticisms of her appearance and background, but gradually escalating to crude drawings and harsh words about her family's immigrant status. Maya absorbed each attack with the same calm composure her grandfather had taught her to maintain during the most brutal training sessions. She replaced her damaged supplies without complaint, solved her locker issues efficiently, and disposed of the offensive notes without allowing emotion to cloud her judgment. Her measured responses only intensified Victoria's frustration, creating a feedback loop that demanded increasingly creative forms of psychological warfare. Harper Davidson proved particularly inventive in her contributions to Maya's isolation. During chemistry lab, she would accidentally spill solutions near Maya's workspace, forcing her to start experiments over while precious class time ticked away. In the cafeteria, Harper's strategically placed whispers followed Maya like invisible smoke, ensuring that curious glances and poorly concealed snickers accompanied every meal. The musical quality of Harper's voice made even her cruelest observations sound almost melodic, adding an extra layer of psychological dissonance to Maya's daily experience. Blake Morrison's approach was more direct, relying on his physical presence and social influence to create an atmosphere of constant tension. He would position himself and his lacrosse teammates near Maya's path between classes, forcing her to navigate around their deliberately placed obstacles while enduring their staged conversations about scholarship students who didn't understand their place. His comments were always carefully calibrated to remain just below the threshold that would trigger administrative intervention, a skill refined through years of practice at pushing boundaries without crossing lines. Maya's academic performance remained flawless despite the mounting pressure, a fact that only served to increase Victoria's determination to find her breaking point. The scholarship student's continued success began to attract positive attention from faculty members, who started recommending her for advanced placement opportunities and academic honors that had traditionally been reserved for legacy families. Professor Whitmore even suggested that Maya might be an excellent candidate for early admission to Ivy League universities, a comment that reached Victoria's ears through the Academy's efficient gossip network. The revelation that Maya might actually surpass them academically shifted the campaign from casual cruelty to something far more systematic and dangerous. Victoria called an emergency meeting of her inner circle in the abandoned astronomy tower, a location that had served as their private sanctuary since freshman year. The November wind howled through the broken windows as she outlined a plan that would permanently establish the hierarchy they had temporarily lost control of. During this same period, Maya found an unexpected source of comfort in Dr. Rachel Foster, the Academy's newest faculty member who taught advanced physics and quantum mechanics. Dr. Foster had arrived at Pinecrest with impressive credentials from MIT and a refreshing disregard for the social politics that governed most interactions within the school. She recognized something exceptional in Maya's analytical mind and began offering her additional challenges that pushed the boundaries of the standard curriculum. Their conversations during after-school tutoring sessions revealed Dr. Foster's own experiences as an outsider who had earned her place through merit rather than birthright. She shared stories of her graduate research and the obstacles she had overcome in academia, providing Maya with a vision of a future where intellectual achievement could triumph over inherited privilege. Dr. Foster never directly addressed the social dynamics Maya was navigating, but her mentorship created a small island of genuine respect in an ocean of manufactured hostility. Maya's artistic work during this period reflected the increasing pressure she was experiencing, though she processed her emotions through her grandfather's teachings rather than allowing them to overwhelm her. Her charcoal portraits became more intense, capturing not just the surface features of her subjects, but the hidden darkness that motivated their actions. She created a series of drawings that depicted the Academy's social dynamics as a medieval court, complete with courtiers, jesters, and executioners, each figure recognizable to anyone familiar with Pinecrest's power structures. The drawings served as both artistic expression and tactical analysis, helping Maya understand the psychological motivations of her tormentors while maintaining the emotional distance necessary for strategic thinking. Her grandfather had taught her that understanding one's opponents was more valuable than hating them, and Maya's artistic observations provided insights that would prove crucial in the confrontation that was rapidly approaching. Victoria's plan reached its final stages as December approached, timed to coincide with the Academy's traditional winter festival, an elaborate celebration that brought together students, faculty, alumni, and prospective families for a weekend of carefully orchestrated social events. The festival represented everything Pinecrest valued: tradition, exclusivity, and the seamless integration of academic excellence with social prominence. It would provide the perfect stage for Victoria's most devastating performance. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The chosen weapon would be humiliation so complete and public that Maya would have no choice but to withdraw from the Academy, preserving the social order while eliminating the threat to Victoria's academic supremacy. The plan required careful coordination and precise timing, but Victoria's group had been perfecting their techniques for years, and they approached this challenge with the confidence that came from never having experienced true failure. Maya sensed the shift in atmosphere without needing to understand the specific details of what was being planned. Her grandfather's training had taught her to read environmental changes the way sailors read wind patterns, and the mounting tension at Pinecrest felt like the stillness that preceded a devastating storm. She increased her training regimen during solitary morning sessions in the Academy's empty gymnasium, preparing her body and mind for whatever confrontation was approaching while maintaining the appearance of complete obliviousness to the danger surrounding her. The winter festival preparations transformed Pinecrest Academy into a showcase of carefully orchestrated perfection. Crystal chandeliers were polished until they gleamed like captured starlight, while garlands of evergreen and gold ribbon adorned every doorway and banister. The main dining hall underwent a complete metamorphosis, its usual sterile elegance replaced with the warm ambiance of a Victorian manor house, complete with towering Christmas trees that had been selected for their symmetrical perfection. Maya watched these transformations with detached interest, recognizing the festival as another performance designed to reinforce the Academy's image of effortless superiority. Alumni returned with their success stories and generous checkbooks. Prospective families toured the grounds with wide-eyed wonder, and current students prepared to demonstrate the polish that justified Pinecrest's astronomical tuition fees. She understood that she was expected to remain invisible during these festivities, a living reminder that the Academy's commitment to diversity remained safely contained within acceptable boundaries. Victoria's preparations took on an almost religious intensity as the festival weekend approached. She held daily strategy sessions with Harper and Blake, refining every detail of their plan until it achieved the precision of a military operation. The chosen location would be the festival's opening ceremony, held in the Academy's historic amphitheater, where generations of Pinecrest students had performed for distinguished audiences. The setting would ensure maximum visibility, while the formal nature of the event would prevent immediate intervention from faculty members, who would be too shocked to respond effectively. The plan itself was elegantly simple in its cruelty. Maya would be invited to participate in a special presentation about academic excellence, ostensibly designed to showcase the Academy's commitment to merit-based achievement. She would be asked to speak about her experiences as a scholarship student, providing inspiration for prospective families who might harbor similar aspirations for their children. The invitation would come from Victoria herself, delivered with such apparent sincerity that Maya would have no reason to suspect the trap being laid. During the presentation, a carefully orchestrated accident would result in Maya being covered with what appeared to be food waste from the festival preparations. Victoria had arranged for containers of spoiled leftovers to be positioned strategically near the speaking platform, while Harper would create the distraction necessary to ensure Maya's humiliation occurred at the precise moment when the audience's attention was fully focused on her. The incident would be captured by multiple cameras, ensuring that Maya's degradation would be preserved for future viewing and shared. across social media platforms where Pinecrest students maintained their digital presence. Blake's role involved managing the aftermath, ensuring that Maya's natural impulse to flee would be blocked while her humiliation was extended for as long as possible. His teammates would form a subtle barrier around the amphitheater exits, trapping Maya in the spotlight while the audience processed what they had witnessed. The psychological impact would be devastating, transforming Maya from an academic achiever into a figure of pity and ridicule who would become forever associated with failure and disgrace. Maya's preparation for the festival took a different form entirely. Dr. Foster had recommended her for inclusion in a special academic showcase that would highlight innovative student research, and Maya had chosen to present her analysis of mathematical patterns in traditional martial arts forms. The project allowed her to explore the intersection between her grandfather's teachings and her academic interests, creating a synthesis that revealed the sophisticated geometry underlying movements that appeared purely intuitive. Working late. In the physics laboratory, Maya calculated the optimal angles for generating maximum force with minimum effort, graphing the relationships between momentum, leverage, and timing that her grandfather had taught her through years of repetitive practice. Her research revealed that traditional martial arts forms contained mathematical principles that modern sports science was only beginning to understand, suggesting that ancient masters had intuited physical laws that Western science had required centuries to formulate. Dr. Foster reviewed Maya's work with growing excitement, recognizing the groundbreaking nature of her students' insights. The presentation would demonstrate not only Maya's academic brilliance, but also her ability to bridge cultural traditions with contemporary scientific understanding. Dr. Foster suggested that Maya might consider submitting her research for publication in academic journals, a possibility that would establish her credentials long before she reached university level. The relationship between Maya and Dr. Foster deepened during these late-night research sessions, evolving beyond simple mentorship into something approaching intellectual partnership. Dr. Foster began sharing her own struggles with imposter syndrome and the challenges she had faced as a young woman in male-dominated academic environments. She recognized in Maya the same fierce intelligence that had carried her through graduate school and beyond, along with an additional quality of inner strength that seemed almost supernatural in its consistency. Maya found herself confiding in Dr. Foster about her grandfather's teachings, though she remained carefully vague about the extent of her martial arts training. She described Master Chen Wei as a philosopher and traditionalist who had taught her the importance of balance, discipline, and respect for knowledge in all its forms. Dr. Foster listened with fascination, recognizing parallels between ancient wisdom traditions and modern scientific methodology that suggested Maya's unique perspective might offer insights unavailable to more conventional thinkers. Meanwhile, Maya's artistic work continued to serve as both emotional outlet and strategic analysis. Her latest series depicted the Winter Festival preparations as an elaborate stage production, complete with actors, directors, and an unsuspecting audience. The drawings captured the artificiality underlying Pinecrest's polished exterior, revealing the careful choreography that maintained illusions of natural superiority and effortless achievement. One particular drawing showed the Academy's main characters positioned like pieces on a chessboard, with Victoria as the White Queen commanding her forces against a solitary Black Knight that bore an unmistakable resemblance to Maya herself. The composition suggested an understanding of strategic positioning that went far beyond artistic metaphor, revealing Maya's analytical approach to the social dynamics surrounding her. As the festival weekend arrived, Maya felt the familiar calm that her grandfather had taught her to cultivate before any significant challenge. She understood that she was walking into a trap, though she remained uncertain about its specific nature or timing. Her training had taught her to trust her instincts while maintaining flexibility in her responses, preparing for multiple scenarios without becoming attached to any particular outcome. The opening ceremony dawned crisp and clear, with December sunlight streaming through the amphitheater's ancient columns and casting dramatic shadows across the stone seating. Alumni filled the reserved sections, their expensive clothing and confident bearing testimony to Pinecrest's track record of producing successful graduates. Prospective families occupied the middle rows, their expressions mixing hope with anxiety as they evaluated whether this exclusive environment would justify their significant financial investment. Current students claimed the upper sections, their casual elegance masking the intense social calculations that governed every interaction. Victoria positioned herself strategically near the platform, her auburn hair gleaming in the morning light and her emerald eyes tracking Maya's approach with predatory focus. Harper and Blake flanked her like courtiers attending their queen, their expressions carefully neutral despite the anticipation crackling between them. Maya took her assigned seat in the front row, her presentation materials organized in the leather messenger bag that had accompanied her through countless challenges. She wore the navy blazer that marked her scholarship status, but her posture carried a dignity that transformed the uniform from a badge of lesser status into something approaching ceremonial armor. The calm in her dark eyes reflected years of training that had prepared her for exactly this type of psychological warfare. Dr. Foster caught Maya's eye from across the amphitheater, offering an encouraging nod that reminded her student of the academic excellence that had earned her place in this prestigious showcase. The physics professor had no awareness of the drama about to unfold, but her presence provided Maya with an anchor of genuine support in a sea of artificial smiles and hidden agendas. Dean Harrison stepped to the podium with the practiced authority of someone who had delivered countless speeches to influential audiences. His silver hair caught the morning light as he adjusted the microphone, surveying the assembled crowd with satisfaction. The Winter Festival opening ceremony represented everything Pinecrest Academy embodied: tradition, excellence, and the seamless blend of academic achievement with social refinement that prepared students for leadership positions in society's most prestigious institutions. The dean's opening remarks touched on the Academy's storied history, its commitment to nurturing intellectual curiosity, and its pride in welcoming exceptional students from diverse backgrounds who enriched the learning environment for everyone. His words carried the careful balance of progressive ideals and traditional values that allowed Pinecrest to maintain its exclusive reputation while adapting to contemporary expectations for inclusivity. Maya listened to the familiar rhetoric with analytical detachment, recognizing the subtle coding that transformed scholarship students into symbols of the Academy's magnanimity, rather than individuals deserving recognition for their own merit. She had learned to navigate these linguistic minefields with the same precision her grandfather had taught her to apply to physical obstacles, understanding that true strength often required enduring indignities while maintaining focus on longer-term objectives. When Dean Harrison announced the special presentation highlighting academic innovation among current students, Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest that preceded significant challenges. Her name was called alongside 3 other students, each representing different aspects of Pinecrest's educational philosophy. Victoria Sterling would discuss her leadership in organizing charitable fundraising events, while Blake Morrison would present his research on the psychological factors that contributed to athletic performance at elite levels. The third presenter was Marcus Webb, a quiet sophomore whose family had donated the Academy's state-of-the-art computer laboratory in exchange for his admission, despite academic credentials that barely met minimum standards. Marcus would discuss his experiences with coding and digital innovation, though everyone understood that his presentation served primarily to acknowledge his family's generosity rather than showcase genuine intellectual achievement. Maya's presentation on mathematical patterns in traditional martial arts represented the type of groundbreaking research that justified Pinecrest's academic reputation. But she understood that her role in the ceremony extended beyond scholarly demonstration. She was meant to embody the Academy's commitment to merit-based achievement while remaining safely contained within boundaries that pose no threat to established hierarchies. Victoria approached the microphone with the fluid confidence that came from years of public speaking training and natural charisma. Her voice carried perfectly across the amphitheater as she described her work, organizing fundraising galas for local children's charities, emphasizing the importance of using privilege responsibly to benefit those less fortunate. Her presentation was polished and emotionally resonant, drawing appreciative murmurs from the audience who recognized both her family's prominence and her individual talents. Blake followed with a discussion of mental conditioning techniques used by professional athletes, incorporating research he had conducted during summer internships with sports psychology consultants. His presentation demonstrated the intersection between academic study and practical application, showing how Pinecrest students could leverage their educational opportunities to make meaningful contributions in their chosen fields. The audience responded positively to his combination of intellectual rigor and athletic achievement. Marcus struggled through his presentation about computer programming innovations, his nervousness evident despite the supportive applause from faculty members, who understood the diplomatic necessity of his inclusion. His family's financial support had funded crucial technological improvements throughout the campus, and his presence in the showcase acknowledged contributions that extended beyond traditional academic metrics. When Maya's turn arrived, she approached the podium with measured steps that reflected years of training in controlled movement and focused breathing. Her presentation materials included mathematical diagrams that illustrated the geometric principles underlying traditional martial arts forms, along with computer modeling that demonstrated optimal force generation through precise angular calculations. The research represented months of work that bridged cultural traditions with contemporary scientific methodology. Maya began her presentation by explaining how ancient martial arts masters had intuited physical principles that modern science was only beginning to quantify through sophisticated measurement techniques. Her voice carried clearly across the amphitheater as she described the mathematical relationships between momentum, leverage, and timing that governed effective martial arts techniques, using visual aids that made complex concepts accessible. To her diverse audience, Dr. Foster watched from the faculty section with visible pride, recognizing the exceptional quality of Maya's research and her ability to communicate sophisticated ideas with clarity and precision. Several other professors leaned forward with interest, clearly impressed by the depth of analysis and innovative thinking that Maya's work represented. Even alumni in the reserved sections began paying closer attention, recognizing intellectual achievement that transcended their expectations for a student presentation. Victoria watched from her position near the platform with growing unease, realizing that Maya's presentation was garnering the type of positive response that could establish her reputation as Pinecrest's most promising student. The scholarship girl's obvious brilliance threatened to overshadow Victoria's own achievements, creating exactly the type of hierarchy disruption that demanded immediate correction. As Maya transitioned to the practical demonstration portion of her presentation, Victoria caught Harper's eye and nodded almost imperceptibly. Harper began moving toward the refreshment station that had been positioned near the platform for the reception following the ceremony. The station included elaborate displays of festival delicacies, along with waste containers that held scraps from the kitchen preparations. Maya continued her explanation of force vectors and angular momentum while demonstrating simplified movements that illustrated the mathematical principles she had analyzed. Her gestures were precise and controlled, revealing the underlying training that informed her academic research without explicitly acknowledging the extent of her martial arts background. The audience watched with fascination as abstract mathematical concepts became visible through physical demonstration. The trap sprang with devastating precision as Maya reached the climax of her presentation. Harper appeared to stumble near the refreshment station, her theatrical clumsiness sending a large container of kitchen waste cascading toward the platform. The mixture of spoiled food scraps, coffee grounds, and discarded preparation materials created a nauseating cascade that struck Maya directly, covering her navy blazer and forcing putrid matter into her mouth as she instinctively gasped in shock. The amphitheater fell silent except for scattered gasps from audience members who struggled to process what they had witnessed. Maya stood frozen at the podium, organic waste dripping from her hair and clothes, while the taste of rotted vegetables and stale breadcrumbs filled her mouth. The mathematical diagrams behind her remained pristine and professional, creating a jarring contrast with the degrading spectacle she had become. Victoria stepped forward with perfectly calibrated concern, her voice carrying across the stunned amphitheater as she offered assistance that somehow managed to draw even more attention to Maya's humiliation. Harper's apology sounded sincere enough to deflect blame, while ensuring that every camera phone in the audience captured Maya's degradation from multiple angles. Blake positioned himself near the platform exits with several teammates, their presence creating subtle barriers that trapped Maya in the spotlight, while she struggled to process the assault on her dignity. The psychological warfare was exquisite in its execution, transforming Maya's moment of academic triumph into a scene of utter degradation that would define her place in Pinecrest's social hierarchy. Maya felt the familiar stillness that preceded every significant decision in her life, the calm that her grandfather had taught her to cultivate when facing opponents who revealed their true nature through unprovoked aggression. The taste of garbage in her mouth became a catalyst rather than a humiliation, crystallizing months of accumulated insults into a moment of perfect clarity about who she truly was and what she was capable of becoming. The silence stretched across the amphitheater like a held breath, broken only by the distant sound of wind moving through the ancient oaks that surrounded Pinecrest Academy. Maya remained motionless at the podium, garbage dripping from her hair and staining her navy blazer, while hundreds of eyes waited to see how she would respond to this calculated humiliation. Victoria's emerald gaze gleamed with satisfaction, certain that this moment would finally establish the social order she had fought to maintain. Maya slowly reached up and removed her wire-rimmed glasses, carefully cleaning the lenses with a tissue from her pocket despite the organic matter that continued to fall from her hair. Her movements were deliberate and controlled, each gesture reflecting the centered calm that her grandfather had spent years teaching her to cultivate in moments of extreme provocation. When she placed the glasses back on her face, her dark eyes held a clarity that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. Dr. Foster started to rise from the faculty section, her maternal instincts overriding professional protocol as she moved to help her student. Maya's subtle hand gesture stopped her, a barely perceptible signal that communicated volumes about the young woman's internal state. This was Maya's moment to define herself, and she would not allow anyone else to intervene in the confrontation that had been building since her first day at the academy. Victoria stepped closer to the platform, her voice dripping with false sympathy as she offered to help Maya clean herself up and perhaps reschedule her presentation for a less unfortunate moment. The calculated cruelty in her suggestion was evident to anyone paying attention, transforming Maya's academic achievement into a source of pity while positioning Victoria as the gracious benefactor willing to assist someone beneath her social station. Maya's response came not in words but in action. She stepped down from the platform with fluid grace, her movements so smooth they seemed almost choreographed, despite the garbage still clinging to her clothes. Her approach toward Victoria carried an intensity that made the auburn-haired girl instinctively step backward, though she maintained her facade of concerned helpfulness, even as primitive warning signals began firing in her nervous system. Harper moved to flank Maya from the left, her musical laugh ringing hollow as she offered additional assistance with cleaning up the mess she had supposedly created through clumsy accident. Blake positioned himself to Maya's right, his athletic frame meant to intimidate through sheer physical presence, while maintaining plausible deniability about any aggressive intentions. They had executed this formation countless times before, surrounding isolated targets while maintaining the appearance of helpful intervention. Maya's grandfather had taught her to read group dynamics like a chess master analyzing board positions, and she recognized the predatory formation immediately. Her years of training in multiple martial arts disciplines had prepared her for exactly this type of scenario, where psychological warfare transitioned into potential physical confrontation. The calm that filled her mind was not the absence of emotion, but the presence of absolute clarity about what needed to happen next. The transformation began with Maya's posture, a subtle shift that somehow made her appear taller and more substantial despite her small frame. Her breathing became deep and rhythmic, drawing oxygen into her core while her muscles prepared for explosive action. The garbage covering her clothes became irrelevant as every ounce of her attention focused on the three opponents who had revealed their true nature through unprovoked aggression. Victoria's confidence wavered as she recognized something fundamental had changed in Maya's demeanor. The quiet scholarship student who had endured months of harassment without retaliation had disappeared, replaced by someone whose stillness radiated potential violence like heat from a forge. Victoria's social conditioning had never prepared her for this type of confrontation, where privilege and manipulation held no power against raw physical capability. Maya's voice cut through the amphitheater's silence with surgical precision. She thanked Victoria for finally showing everyone exactly who she truly was beneath her polished exterior, expressing gratitude for the clarity that came when people revealed their authentic selves through their actions. Her words carried no anger or hurt, only the calm assessment of someone who had moved beyond emotional reaction into strategic thinking. Blake made the critical error of reaching for Maya's shoulder, his intention to physically guide her away from the platform, triggering a response that none of them had anticipated. Maya's movement was so fast it seemed to violate physics, her hand intercepting his wrist and applying pressure to nerve points that sent lightning bolts of pain shooting up his arm. The lacrosse captain found himself on his knees without understanding how he had gotten there, his athletic conditioning useless against techniques that targeted the nervous system rather than relying on brute strength. Harper's scream of shock transformed into something deeper as Maya flowed into her next movement, a gentle-looking gesture that sent the musical girl stumbling backward with her legs suddenly unable to support her weight. The pressure point techniques Maya's grandfather had taught her were invisible to untrained observers, but devastatingly effective against opponents who had never encountered real martial arts training. Victoria backed away in growing panic, her social armor crumbling as she realized that all her careful planning had accounted for every variable except the possibility that her target might be capable of defending herself with overwhelming force. Maya followed her retreat with measured steps, each movement demonstrating the perfect balance and control that came from years of dedicated training under masters who demanded nothing less than excellence. The crowd watched in stunned fascination as Maya began removing the garbage from her clothes with the same methodical precision she had applied to neutralizing her attackers. She explained in calm, clear tones that true strength revealed itself not through the ability to hurt others but through the discipline to remain peaceful until peace became impossible. Her grandfather's teachings had prepared her for this moment, when the choice between violence and pacifism would define her character. Dean Harrison finally found his voice, calling for security while struggling to understand how a simple presentation had transformed into something that resembled a martial arts demonstration. Maya looked up at him with respectful attention, explaining that she had simply defended herself against assault while causing no permanent harm to anyone involved. Her legal knowledge, gleaned from her mother's work in psychiatric evaluation, allowed her to frame the incident in terms that protected her from administrative consequences. Dr. Foster reached the platform first, her protective instincts overriding everything else as she assessed Maya for injuries while marveling at her student's composure under extraordinary circumstances. The physics professor recognized immediately that Maya's movements had demonstrated principles of leverage and momentum that directly supported the research she had been presenting before the interruption occurred. Victoria found herself facing consequences she had never imagined possible. Alumni who had witnessed her orchestrated attack began questioning the values that Pinecrest supposedly instilled in its students, while prospective families wondered whether the Academy's culture encouraged the type of behavior they had just observed. The social media videos that were supposed to immortalize Maya's humiliation instead captured Victoria's cowardice and cruelty in high definition. The weeks following the Winter Festival incident transformed Pinecrest Academy in ways that no one could have predicted. Maya became a symbol of resilience and hidden strength, inspiring other scholarship students to stand up against harassment while earning genuine respect from faculty members who had always suspected she possessed exceptional qualities. Her presentation on mathematical patterns in martial arts was eventually published in multiple academic journals, establishing her reputation as an innovative researcher long before she graduated high school. Victoria's expulsion came not through administrative punishment, but through her family's quiet withdrawal from the Academy, recognizing that her behavior had damaged the sterling name beyond repair. Harper and Blake faced suspension and mandatory counseling, their futures at elite universities suddenly uncertain as college admissions officers learned about their involvement in organized harassment campaigns. Maya's relationship with Dr. Foster deepened into a mentorship that would continue through her university years and beyond, as the physics professor recognized her students' potential to bridge Eastern wisdom traditions with Western scientific methodology. Their collaboration would eventually produce groundbreaking research that revolutionized understanding of human movement and efficiency. Years later, Maya returned to Pinecrest as a guest speaker, her success as a martial arts champion and biomechanics researcher inspiring a new generation of students who understood that true strength came from discipline, knowledge, and the courage to stand up for what was right. She never forgot the taste of garbage that had catalyzed her transformation from victim to warrior, and she used that memory to help others discover their own hidden reserves of power and determination. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.